The Fireflies in the Jar. The Old Stump Garden was quiet in the soft light of late afternoon. The trees stood tall around the clearing. Small flowers rested along the edge of the garden. And in the middle of the garden stood the old tree stump. Luma, the gentle little bunny, sat on the ground beside it. In her paws, she held a small glass jar. Today, Luma had come to the garden with a small wish. She hoped to catch a few fireflies inside her jar. Tiny lights were beginning to appear in the air. Fireflies. They blinked softly between the flowers and the trees. Luma opened the lid of her jar. "I want to catch some," she said quietly to herself. A firefly drifted close. Luma reached out carefully, but the firefly floated away. "Oh!" She tried again. Another firefly blinked near the stump. Luma stepped closer and lifted the jar. The firefly darted away into the air. She tried again and again. Every time she moved the jar, the firefly slipped away. Soon the sky began turning darker. More fireflies filled the garden. Their tiny lights blinked everywhere. Luma slowly sat down on the ground. Her ears drooped a little. "I can't catch even one," she said softly. At that moment, a gentle glow appeared between the flowers. Pilo walked slowly into the clearing. Pilo was a small, mystical creature. His soft, ice-blue fur glowed gently in the dim light. Two tiny, rounded horns rested on his head. He looked at Luma sitting on the ground. Then he looked at the empty jar. He tilted his head. "Why are you sad?" Pilo asked in his calm voice. Luma pointed at the jar. "I wanted to catch some fireflies," she explained quietly. "But they always fly away." Pilo looked at the drifting lights in the air. "Oh!" He picked up the jar from the ground. "I want to try," he said simply. Pilo walked slowly toward the part of the garden where many fireflies were floating. He lifted the jar. But as he stepped closer, the fireflies scattered into the air. They blinked and drifted farther away. Pilo stopped. "Oh," he whispered. He stood very still, holding the jar. He watched the fireflies drifting through the garden. "I don't know how to catch them," he said quietly. So Pilo did nothing. He simply stood there, very still, watching the lights move through the air. After a while, one firefly floated closer. It hovered gently near Pilo's glowing fur. Pilo blinked slowly. Then another firefly drifted near him, and another. Soon, two more lights hovered beside him. Luma sat up. "Pilo," she whispered. The fireflies did not fly away. They floated calmly around him. Very slowly, Pilo lifted the jar. He moved it gently through the air. Several fireflies drifted inside. Luma's eyes grew wide. "Pilo!" More tiny lights blinked inside the jar. Pilo looked down. "Eh?" They came. Luma carefully bring the lid. With slow and gentle hands, she closed the lid. The tiny lights glowed softly inside the glass. Luma looked amazed. "I can't believe they came inside," she whispered. Pilo placed the jar on top of the old tree stump. The two of them stood beside it. The jar glowed like a little lantern. The fireflies blinked softly inside. The warm light spread across the garden. Luma leaned close to Pilo. "Thank you," she whispered gently. She spoke very softly. She did not want to scare the fireflies. The garden felt peaceful and magical. They stood there quietly for a while, watching the tiny lights shimmer inside the jar. After some time, the night grew deeper. The moon rose above the trees. "It's getting late," Luma said softly. She picked up the jar carefully. Pilo nodded. They walked slowly out of the Old Stump Garden. At the small path in the forest, they stopped. "Good night, Pilo," Luma said quietly. "Good night," Pilo replied. Luma carried the glowing jar home. Inside her cozy room, she placed it gently on a small table beside her bed. The fireflies blinked softly in the glass. Their light filled the room with a warm glow. Luma curled under her blanket. She smiled as she watched the tiny lights. Before long, her eyes slowly closed. Far away in the forest meadow, Pilo curled into a small glowing ball. He blinked happily once. The night in Whispering Hollow became calm and quiet again, and the forest held them gently through the night.